Dr. Alexis Chopra. I am the director of the public speaking program here at the University of Alabama. And what I do is I teach large lectures of public speaking and then other communication courses. But my main job is teaching those lectures and then managing the program. And so I'm the one who trains and oversees and directs, etc., mentors my graduate students who teach the performance labs. And so we're here today to share with you kind of what we do, who we are, and some of our top tips for brand new GTAs. This is a great space. We love questions at the end. You can't ask us anything that we haven't heard before. And so we really want you to think about, as we go through this, what kind of questions would you have that we could possibly answer or share some insight with? All right.
Hi, I'm Dr. Murray Silverstone in physics and astronomy. I teach introductory classes mainly in both. So in astronomy, I am the faculty supervisor of all the astronomy GTAs who teach our lab sections for that intro class. And then for physics, we have two different styles. We have a lecture lab separated and a lecture lab mixed. In both cases, we have GTAs who help out. They teach our lab classes that are separate from the lecture, and I've interacted with GTAs in all of those different formats and ways and seen some pretty interesting things. And hopefully with these experiences, we can help give you a leg up at the beginning of your career as a GTA lab instructor. So that's me.
I'm Lisa Mckinney. I teach accounting and tax in the business school, and for about 15 years I was a supervisor of all the graduate assistants for our intro to accounting class. I also have graduate assistants for a community outreach experiential learning program I have. And so hopefully what we're going to be able to tell you today is what we've learned from our own mistakes and what we've seen other people make mistakes, and maybe you won't make those mistakes.
Okay, and this is our second round, so nothing is super scripted, but we typically have the same type of advice. So I know that I'm going to do things a little differently. I know that at 11:30 you heard Dr. Brooks give some wow presentation, as he does. Yes, no doubt. And he talked about first impressions, right? How long does it take to make a first impression? Anyone? 7 seconds, something like that. Think about this. Immediately, those students are going to make a first impression kind of mental collage of who you are before you even have an opportunity to open your mouth, to teach any real concepts, to do anything. And so thinking about preparing yourself mentally to make the best first impression. And so I'm going to talk about some of that, but also I have kind of my 3 words, and they are: number 1, to be a great GTA or lab instructor, you have to be, number 1, prepared, number 2, professional, and number 3, approachable. I know approachable doesn't start with a P, but it has a P in it, and so we're going with that. But professional, prepared, and approachable. And when you think about making that first impression, how many of you are nervous about starting next week, getting up in front of that class? Okay, if you haven't raised your hand, you should, because you should all be nervous. And that's normal. I get nervous at the beginning of every semester, and I've been doing this for a while, and I'm sure the rest of my colleagues do as well. You want to make the best first impression that you can, and you want to kind of make them feel secure about the fact that you're leading this lab or this class, and that you are prepared for that, and that you are going to be somebody who's going to kind of lead them down a really good path, teach them what you know, and think about just the ways that you want to make that first impression.
So in my physics and astronomy classes, I like to do demonstrations, so I often have props or things I can point to. I'm going to make an analogy to what I think your best job can be this semester and your future semesters teaching. Hopefully this might look like a sandwich to some of you people. You had lunch not too long ago, maybe you had a sandwich. So I'm going to talk about 3 layers of how I would try to give you advice on how to interact in different aspects of your job and some pointers in each layer. So I'll start off with the top layer, I guess the top piece of bread of my sandwich, and I'm going to make this an analogy for your interactions with your faculty advisor in the university, like submitting grades or performing, or at least teaching the details that you're supposed to teach in your labs. So I would say one of the most important things here in this top layer is to let your faculty advisor or your department know if there's a deadline you're going to miss for whatever reason, or there's a student that you can't get a grade in for some reason. As early as possible, try to communicate that deadline going to be missed up the chain, because as soon as the faculty advisor knows this, there are probably solutions or ways to work around it, or ways to make the situation better than it otherwise would be if you wait until after the deadline and say, oh, sorry, missed it. So please try to communicate, try to meet all your deadlines, but if something is going to slip, make sure the people above you know that so they can mitigate whatever might go wrong because of that.
I'll go along with the 3 P's and add 2 more P's. Let's do this. Passion and personality. Don't be afraid to show your personality. And even if you know that some people are going to be like back in high school, oh my gosh, what a nerd. Who cares? Show why you like this subject and your passion for it. Because think about different lab instructors or teaching assistants you come across. When they have shown their excitement for the subject, you kind of get into it. I remember taking a geology class here 30 years ago, and my gosh, I do not like rocks. But this person was super excited about rocks. And so I was kind of like, maybe I like rocks. So you kind of see that. It's the worst when people are not excited about their job. You know what I'm saying? You're doing this because you dig it, whatever it is. And I dig accounting, and I dig the politics behind tax. And even if people aren't that excited about it, when you get excited, that passion and who you are really shines through. And don't be afraid to show them what you like and who you are, a little bit about yourself. It is making you vulnerable a little bit, and we'll talk about that later. But just kind of step out there and show them a little bit of who you are.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, to go off of that, you know, thinking about that energy, right? Energy is crucial. If you watched Dr. Brooks give his presentation, you know he's got a lot of great energy. Would we all agree? Yes. But having energy and passion for that topic, think about those first couple of weeks in labs. That is going to set the tone for the rest of the semester. If those students walk in and they see you and you're dry and nervous and overly serious, how many presentations have you sat through today that were dry, overly serious, and too long? Any? Was there any? I'm sure there were. Right? Hopefully this isn't one of them.
Later.
But you want to think about how you bring that energy and that professionalism and that, you know, kind of greeting students on that first day, eye contact, smile. We don't want you to be their friends, right? We'll talk about that a little later. We don't want you to be their friends, but we do want you to look like you're enjoying this topic, you're enthusiastic about teaching in the semester ahead, because that's going to set the tone for the class. And you, whether you're used to this role or not, you are now a leader. You are a leader. You're it. And they're taking their cues from you. Is this going to be an enjoyable class? Is this person prepared? How have you felt when you've gone into a class and that lab instructor or that instructor was not prepared for class? It made you feel like it was a waste of your time, right? Don't let that happen to you. Be prepared, be there, and give them all those good cues so that they feel like, okay, maybe this is a geology class and I don't dig rocks, but hey man, I won the lottery on my lab instructor, you know? And make them feel like, oh yeah, I've got somebody who's enthusiastic about it, they're prepared, they're gonna help me, we're gonna get through this together. So really work at making that good first impression and bringing that passion and energy into the lab.
So I'm going to come back to my sandwich here. Hopefully I haven't forgotten about it. And I'm going to come down to the bottom piece of bread here. That's the students. They're actually the ones who indirectly, I guess, pay our bills. They're the reason we have a job. So let's look. The best two little pieces of advice. One is that you are closer in age to your students than we are. So you can help translate some of the stuff that we got, maybe a cultural reference wrong or some joke didn't happen. But more importantly, you can see what it is that the students might not be getting because you're closer in age and in style and in whatever else the students need to get some communication there. But the second piece that is really important is expectations. If you set the expectations for your students so they know what they need to do to get the grade they want, because of course they're all trying to get A's, maybe some B's in there, and they're not all going to get them. So if they know what it is that they need to do, especially from day one, to get the best grade that they can, make sure they know that. So if they miss the expectations, you're like, well, I told you this is what it's going to take, and they'll understand at least if they didn't get the grade they wanted.
Another tip that I would have that I still literally struggle with to this day is to accept the fact that not everyone is going to like you, and to somehow, every year of your life, thicken up your skin. But at the same token, when somebody is delivering criticism that you can take something from, take that from it. You are now in a position where you're in the public. And if you want to hide in a box the rest of your life, no one's going to criticize you. That's very hard to do. People are going to have criticisms of you. Some of them you are going to know about directly because of those evaluations that you have to read, and we'll talk somewhat about those. This is the best time in your life to start with. It's going to hurt a little bit. I've heard it all. I rate my professor. There can be 100 good things. It's those couple that just bite me to the core. I'm constantly trying to improve that about myself. Not everyone's going to like you, and people might also blame things that they're doing on you. Yes? So this is the perfect time to adult and to start learning that, all right, let me see what this person is saying. Is there anything valid in there, or are they just mad? And let me separate me and not be personal about this. I mean, it's gone so far that literally I've have people say things about my weight on Rate My Professor after I had babies, and I'm like, really? Okay, now I'm eating more. Okay, I got really big when I got I think 80 pounds is good. When the baby was 6, I think that was a good. I got really big, and I was like, and that's now on Rate My Professor. Sure. Awesome, thank you. Did that with the other baby. Did that again. So that's gonna hurt. If you're a lady just had a baby, it's kind of like, ooh, you just smashed me down. But I can laugh about it now and go, that ain't have nothing to do with my teaching. I was going into labor when I was still teaching you people. I was sitting there and I was like, I'm getting through this class, okay? So, I had to learn from it. Again, that no matter what job you're in, somebody's going to criticize you. And now we've got to start learning to separate the garbage from the stuff that we can learn from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thick skin.
Yeah, and the reality is this is a learning experience for you, and we know this. As directors of graduate students, we understand that you have not taught before. We do not expect you to be perfect. We do not expect your SOIs or your surveys to be 5 out of 5. We don't really expect them to be, too fantastic, but we do want them to be good. And I'll go back to, kind of both of their points on some level. For Lisa, I mean, the reality is you really do have to learn from those. And we expect that. That's why you get feedback. It's like, okay, every single semester that I teach, I always realize what I didn't do well, what I didn't spend enough time on or spent too much time on, or something that I thought that was getting, there's always room for improvement. And so you're just starting that process. So embrace that feedback. You're going to find those really good nuggets of things that you're like, you know what, I didn't enjoy reading that about myself, but maybe I need to change for next semester. And then there's just silly comments. And then there are a lot of really great comments, students that you connected with and you made them love the subject or grow as, a professional or whatever that is. So you're going to get kind of the gambit. But to Murray's point, something that will help you is the realization of setting those expectations with your students. One of the most successful graduate students I ever had this brilliant thing that she did. Her name was Hunter Coward. And she said at the beginning in the first lab, what did she say? My responsibility, your responsibility. And so she would set out for her lab and for her students. All of these things are my responsibilities. Keeping up with assignments, explaining the assignments to you correctly, grading on time, getting those in on time, responding to your emails in a timely manner. You need to articulate what a timely manner is. Is it 12 hours? Is it 24 hours? Is it 36 hours? But then you have to keep your word. And she would say, these are my responsibilities. My responsibility is showing up for lab prepared and being responsive. Your responsibility is turning in these assignments, doing them. And so it was great because during the semester, students would come up to her and they would say something or complain or have a question, and she would say, is this my responsibility or is this your responsibility? But they loved her because there wasn't a lot of ambiguity. They knew exactly what was expected and they performed. So I would really encourage you to kind of clear up those expectations, and hopefully that will work a little better into those end comments.
Yes. I'm going to hold off on my SOI comments at the moment because I want to do one more layer of my sandwich. I haven't gotten to the middle part yet. So the stuff that makes this a sandwich, what is this about? This is the pedagogy, the way you're going to teach to the students in your labs. And some of you are going to finish your graduate careers, I hope very successfully, and then go on to a faculty position. The possibility to experiment with your research. Some of you will have some details about the labs that you can change up. You can learn from semester to semester of what did or what didn't work. If you can experiment with that pedagogy, with that experience of how to teach, what you're teaching, what details you can change, that is something you can capture and write up and can go right into your statement of teaching when you finally get around to applying for faculty positions, if that's what your next step is going to be. So I encourage you, in as much as you are given some freedom, to try to see what does and doesn't work and try to capture those moments and those learning experiences that you're learning how to teach, and be able to leverage that for success in the future. And then maybe I will move on to an SOI comment at the moment, because some of you are going to get some really horrible statements, because every semester I get some really horrible statements.
And Murray's wonderful. Can you imagine saying anything horrible about him?
I do get some students who like me too. But so these are usually complaints not about how I was teaching, but how the student was able to learn. And since we get those, we expect that you're going to get some of those too. So the SOIs themselves are not an absolute statement of exactly how you did or didn't do your job well. The trouble is that some of these statements are so hurtful. I want you to lean on your cohort, lean on the more experienced TAs, because they have gotten those as well. So when you get to that point in the semester, do absolutely share. Not necessarily maybe with your faculty advisors, but more so with your peers, because they've gone through it. What you're really going to do is try to hunt for those nuggets of gold, for that actually constructive feedback, which occasionally is in there. And that is going to be something more valuable than what you're doing actually in the lab room. But those are kind of rare. So just steel yourself for it. There'll be other negative feedback you'll get. It's not a statement about you. It's more often a statement about whether that student was prepared and learned well or not. So just keep that in mind.
I would say to remember that you are not Stuart Bell and you are not Nick Saban. What I mean by that is, do you ever have trouble because you're stressed out and can't go to sleep? Do you ever think about how they ever get to sleep? I mean, imagine being Stuart Bell. I have to deal with the entire university tomorrow. The entire university. Here's my point. That's not you. You are not responsible for everything. At the end of the day, the buck stops here with us with the classes. I want you to use that as a good thing. There are certain things that are out of your control, and you cannot and should not be stressed out about them. Right. Think about what you can control, and it's a finite thing that you can manage that. That is a manageable level. You are not in charge of the entire accounting department. You are not in charge of the entire biology department. That doesn't bear on you, and that's not your problem. You are doing this one job. This is what you can control, and it is something that you can handle stress-wise if you look at it that way. Mm-hmm. I don't know how Stuart Bell does it, do you?
Yeah. And remember that your director, whether, whoever that is, I have a meeting every single week with my graduate teaching assistants, but some people are a little more hands-off. But don't be afraid to go to that person and ask. If you don't understand why an assignment is important, if you don't understand, the logistics of something, you're not supposed to understand everything. You're brand new. But don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions, because this is a learning experience for you, and we hope that in teaching and in learning about teaching and in learning about managing students, that you're going to become a better professional for that. But it's our job and our responsibility to help you with that. So don't feel like you can't go to your director. Also, on that note, as they were saying, the buck stops with us. If you have students that are an issue or a problem in some way, or they bring you something that's really heavy or whatever that is, you need to lean back on your directors, right? Some of the feedback that you get from students are about things that, as Lisa was saying, are not within your control. I'm your graduate teaching assistant. I'm teaching this lab. I can't control whether Dr. Chilcutt assigns 12 quizzes or not, right? I mean, so understand that is fine, but if there is something that you feel like maybe you could change this for, I'm always open for feedback about the class as well. So if there's a gap between you and the director, work at closing that gap. Have a relationship where you can talk to them about what you're doing and your experiences and ask questions, because that's going to be crucial for your success.
I'm going to come back to something we've mentioned before, preparation, because I think that's going to be important in my middle layer sandwich here. So one of the best things about what you're doing in the lab is to make sure that the students have the ability to get the result they're supposed to get, or to get through the material that they're supposed to get through. And the best way to do that is run through it yourself before the first lab meets. Make sure all of the pieces that you need are actually there and are actually working. And try to anticipate any of the common mistakes that could happen, because your students are going to absolutely love you if they make a mistake and you've already anticipated it and you know exactly how to get them back on track and how to get the best job that they can get done. That's like a no-brainer for them. So it takes some preparation, some extra preparation, but to get in that room, to make sure all the pieces are there and are working, and if it's a reagent you need for a chemistry experiment, make sure there's enough of that to last however long it's supposed to last, and again, lean back up the chain if something is broken or missing, or if something is absolutely critical that's just not going to work for the labs for that entire week. Make sure your faculty advisor is in the loop and can do something to try to help you have a successful experience, and then have your students have the best experience in learning that they possibly could. So make sure you're going up the chain, and also check in with your peers, and hopefully that'll really show that you're interested in your students' learning, and they're going to love you for that.
I think my final piece of advice that I have is to think about old teaching instructors or even teachers that you've had, and kind of write down, what did I like about that person and what did I not like about that person? And emulate the things that you liked. What was good about that class? Why was it good? It may take a few minutes of just really thinking, why did I like that person so much? I didn't really like the subject and the test stunk. What was it about how I felt like I got my money's worth, or that was a good college experience? What was that like? Might even go back to high school, right? Don't we have, I have teachers I remember from elementary school, you probably do too, that you're like, God, that was the best teacher I ever had. What was it? It really takes a minute of introspection of, there was something about that person, and you can take a little bit from each one. You had favorite teachers, favorite mentors, and favorite instructors that made you not hate that class and have a good experience. And maybe you could replicate some of those. And at the same time, think about the most miserable class experiences you've had. Why did you dread going, or just stop going and try to just go for the test? You just hated it that much. There's a lesson there, isn't there? If you hated it and a lot of other people hated it, there's something I need to learn from that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my last thing. All right, has everybody checked themselves out on social media? Have you Googled yourself? All right, have you talked about this in the lab sessions yet? In the big thing? Okay, here it is.
Yeah.
When these people show up next Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or whenever it is, for many of them, it's the first time they're going to know who's teaching their lab.
Yeah.
They're going to get your name, and guess what they're going to do? What did you always do? How many people Googled, me in the last week? Probably plenty, right?
The arrest records are always hilarious.
Let me tell you,
Y'all have a lot of those.
Saw that skinny dipping I did. Yeah. So, but listen, there's a reason I don't have a Facebook account or Twitter, and you have to think about they are interested in who you are. It's easy access information. So go back, have this moment before they meet you, and then they get your name and they put it in every search bar they can find. And look with fresh eyes at what they see, okay? And think about it from a credibility perspective, okay? How do I want to view myself now as a credible person? Many of you might just have graduated from undergraduate. How many of you have just graduated undergraduate? How many of you graduated undergraduate here at the University of Alabama? Okay. You might end up with a situation where you're teaching people that you've been in other classes with. It's really awkward, and there's nothing I can do about it, right? That's all on you. I might have moved people who were in a class with somebody they dated before. I was like, okay, we can swap. But other than that, I just let things ride. So get on social media and start repositioning yourself as a professional. So all those beach photos in a bikini, I would take those out. The red Solo cups, whatever else you've got going on there. Think about the apps that you're on. However they can find you, that's crucial. And start cleaning it up.
Can I still be on Tinder though?
No. And in fact, we had in another class in our college, there was an issue because somebody was on Tinder.
Ooh.
And their
No dating.
students found it. Anyway, so pay attention to what's out there, because you're now going to have 20 or 25 or whatever curious minds, and they're not just curious about the subject. They're curious about who you are, and just start kind of prepping yourself. Also think about that first day, right? Yeah. What are you going to look like that first day? I'm not telling you what to wear. You've got a style. I want you to embrace that style. But think about back to what Lisa said. When you walked into a class and you saw somebody in cargo shorts and flip-flops and a t-shirt, what was your first impression of this instructor?
This is going to be easy.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Right? You are setting yourself up for an uphill battle. Okay? Likewise, if you walk into a class and somebody's, sharp and they're together and they're there early and they're meeting and greeting you and their stuff is pulled up and they've got all the tech bugs worked out, you feel like, oh, okay, we're this is serious. And so think about how you're going to craft, and I really mean that, craft this impression of yourself, because as Lisa said and we're all reiterating here, you are now a public leader figure. You're somebody at the front of the classroom, not sitting in the back anymore. So start crafting that image the way that you want to craft it.
I think I can continue with a little bit of this vibe, because we want you, and actually it's something I think Alexis said last time, we want you to be friendly and approachable, but still have that professional distance, because you are grading your students. There is that level of you are responsible for grading them. They have to meet the expectations you have set out for them to get a good grade. So, of course, don't friend your students on Facebook. Don't have that social interaction outside of the classroom when they are your students. That's pretty important to make sure there is that professional separation. But when they have a problem and they come to you with a problem, listen to them and try to be open to, at least in as much as you can within the rules, meet whatever it is that they're asking for. And if there's any question about what's in the rules, please do kick it up to us. We're there to not only cover problems, but also to give you advice if there's something you need advice or something we can actually do to help that situation. So don't overpromise, but definitely be that first line of being able to listen to a student's problem and to engage in a way that the student is willing to open up to give you the information that will help that student do better that semester. But yeah, we're trying to tell you to do both things, be distant and be close, but not so close that you're so friendly that there's some question about what's going on, and not so distant that they're not going to come to you when there is something that you can do to help. So just kind of keep that dichotomy in mind.
Balance.
Okay,
yeah. We want to open the floor up for questions. So there are no silly questions. We love questions. You could not ask for a better panel of people who, obviously, if you haven't figured out, we're just like, what, out there. So ask us anything. We'll give you as honest a response as we can. Yeah. Go for it. concerns. Yes.
I'm wondering for syllabus, and I don't know if you deal with that in here, but some of us will have office hours, and on the syllabus, students may want to contact us. What is your advice about giving cell phone numbers as a contact?
I think it's a personal decision.
Yeah,
it is,
it is.
and I know people that do it.
I do it for certain classes I have for certain reasons.
Right.
But that's totally, I think that would be your call.
Yeah. I tell my graduate students not to do that, but to be responsive in their emails.
Yeah, why do you really
So-
need it nowadays, right?
You know-
don't, email does just,
Yeah.
it's
Usually.
instantaneous.
And here's the other thing for, like with my grad students, all my grad students have my cell number, right? And they can text me and call me anytime. And I need that because we need that open line of communication. But also remember, oh, this is such a great point. Everything that you put in a UA email, write it and understand that it can always be read by the dean or whoever else.
Yeah.
It is a record. Okay? So, and I can't tell you how many times there's a conflict and I'm having to ask a student to pull back up their emails between the graduate student and the student.
That's a good point.
If it's a
Yeah.
text,
Absolutely.
that's going to be more difficult to do, right?
Or
I mean, you could do it, you could screenshot it, but so to have that professional line of communication, I would prefer for you all to kind of, for yourselves, to have that through Crimson, but also just really make whatever you say as you set that expectation, make that the truth. Don't ignore people's emails where then they come to us and I've emailed my TA 5 times and they haven't responded to me and that kind of thing. But yeah. Did that answer the
Yes.
question? Yeah. I mean, you just might open yourself up to
Yeah.
unwanted things. Yes.
So I'm gonna be teaching an accounting course, and so,
Sorry.
what's typically gonna happen is somebody's gonna play college freshman and not show up for half the semester, take an exam, get their first F of their life,
Yes.
and then be like,
No
it's, and then send me a panicked email and go, can I get extra credit because that's what we did in ninth grade. How do you handle that? How should we handle that?
I think that goes back to what we said, what's under your control and not.
Yeah.
You're absolutely allowed to throw us under the bus is how I kind of view it, right? You didn't write the syllabus, right? So every one of you is going to have a syllabus, and you are not going to have discretion to give extra credit.
Right.
So that's the good news, and that's the thing you don't have to feel bad about,
Yeah.
right? So that will be a
That's
case
us.
of I cannot give extra credit. I would like to help you if you want to come to my office hours, improve if you can. However, if you want to appeal the policy in the syllabus for extra credit, I'm sending you to the professor, and then we'll go no. And
Right,
that's it,
right.
So that's a classic example of not your problem.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can be sympathetic and help them out, but there's no pressure. You should not feel bad at all. You are not even allowed to give extra credit.
But
Right.
guess what? You are absolutely right. You're 100% right.
will
They're
get
not going to come to class, and then they're going to make a bad grade, and then you're going to get these like crazy, desperate emails about the dog did this, and it's the mother. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like this whole thing, and that's a great opportunity for you to go. You know what? I've observed in the last 6 class periods you haven't been there. That might have something to do with this grade, but I encourage you to start coming to class. Or if you've got all these crazy excuses, to email.
I think it's
Dr.
time to
McKinney.
send it to the professor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're fine. You're fine. But you're right.
Yeah.
It's gonna
And
happen.
it's going to happen.
Yes.
So it's inevitably going to happen. We're going to get midterms, and then it's going to be a night or two before the midterms, and you're going to probably start seeing a flush of emails come in, like your 12, 1, 2 a.m. email. When is how late in the night is it, should you respond? So
You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
You do not have to do that. You are not on call. You are not a physician.
You are not a
Right.
physician.
This is not ER. You are fine. You create your own policy. I will respond to you in 24 hours, but I go to bed at 10 p.m.
Sometimes it's not good to respond right away either.
And that's
Yes.
true too.
Yeah?
Think about
that.
it.
It's
Yeah.
the old send button. Wish you could send that, take
Yeah.
that back sometimes.
Yes.
With that being said, if like let's say I'm up at 1 a.m.
You can answer it, yeah.
and somebody, it's not. Is it inappropriate to send an email back at 1 a.m.? I mean,
No, I do it all the
Up to you.
time.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
It's
I
fine.
know.
But don't feel like you've got to.
Okay, okay,
Yeah. Just don't make that your policy that you're always going to respond at 1 a.m.
Gotcha. Right.
Okay.
Have you guys found an effective way to get students to come to office hours before a week before?
I'll get rid of that.
Just wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Constantly
Yeah.
remind them it's an opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
And be approachable.
Yeah.
Think about when you haven't gone to office hours, if you ever wanted to, is because
Yeah.
that you thought that professor was going to bite your head off, right? You know that you're like, oh, I'm not going. So if they feel you're valuable and approachable and they need you, they'll come. And you kind of, hey man, if you're not getting this, I'm hanging out at office hours. Don't forget, I'm there 1, 2, and
Yeah.
Tuesday. That's it. Now, the first 5 weeks, nobody gonna show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just can watch cat videos. Then. It's okay. You will have plenty of time. There's nothing to do the first 5 weeks. Then after the first test, guess what happens? Everybody comes. You'll have plenty to do then.
But if you do identify students who you think, I could really spend an hour talking about this, can you please come to my office hours? That's a great way to try to hook them in, to say, I'm available, this is going to help you. Yeah. Mhm.
And you know what? It doesn't hurt also. I get my graduate students to take a tour one of the first weeks, and they take their students from the lab down into the bottom of Reese Pfeiffer. They show them my office, they show them their office, and it's kind of like, let's go on a tour and figure out, where I am, so that there's not that, well, I don't know where that office hour.
That's
And
cute.
it's just
Good
more
idea.
of a kind of an approachable thing.
Yeah.
So idea. Okay. Anyone? Crazy questions? Okay.
So, as far as like appointment based office hour, by appointment only or whatever, is that has to be done in the office setting, or could it take place somewhere else on campus? Like it's nice weather.
Ooh,
We could sit
no.
outside.
I say, and I'm not very conservative about much, but I would not do office hours anywhere but in office.
But
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I didn't if it was on
Houndstooth, yeah. No.
Yeah, exactly. You're
I
not,
was thinking,
not at the bar.
Starbucks instead of
I wouldn't. I just
Okay.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
Would you guys?
No, and the other thing is, it's going to be really important for you to have a stated office hour or two, and then by appointment.
Okay.
Yeah.
But and if you can put that hour before or after that lab or somewhere kind of
Okay.
close.
That's always a good idea.
That's
yeah.
really good, because then you're in there prepping anyway, right? And so if a student walks in, whatever, after that lab, you might be going back to your office just to put in grades or to do something. So that's always a good time to kind of, once again, kind of encourage them, hey, you're here, you're in the building, come on,
My office hours are at the Houndstooth. I like that.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean,
2
it's-
a.m. to 3 a.m.
Okay, anybody else? Yes.
Okay, so I graduated from Alabama in May, and a lot of my undergrad friends are still there. How would you, I guess, approach teaching your friends in that situation? Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, the best thing is to have a conversation with them. If you end up with anybody in your class that you know, is to have a conversation on the very front end. Hey, at the end of that first lab, so-and-so, wait a minute. Hey, look, I know that we know each other, but the reality is now I'm in this position, and so I can't treat you any differently than anybody else in this lab. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable about it, but understand that professionally I'm bound to just, and you just have to state it on the front end.
Wow,
Don't let
that's
things get
Yeah,
weird.
that's very good.
Yeah.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought to do that. That's good.
Yeah, I mean,
Very
I
good.
just say put it out there at the very beginning and just, there it is.
And then that's, I guess, setting the expectations of the professionalism, or the really that you're not going to be unfair. You'll be fair to all your students.
Anyone else? Yes?
When it comes to office hours by appointment, while that's probably not going to be an issue for the majority of the semester, around testing time, I could see that becoming a very popular option while we're also concerned about the research we're doing or the classes that we're taking at the same time. What expectation should we have with making us available to students while also having to balance the other
The good news is each one of us, whoever you have, is going to say, I expect you to have this many office hours a
Right.
week.
Yeah.
And that's it. So you're absolutely not going to have an open-ended
Yeah.
at all.
No.
That's more of a problem we might run into, and we know
Yeah.
when to call it. You're absolutely, and I would say to your supervisor, what is it if you want me to do appointment, how do you want to do it? Now, when I did the accounting labs, we only did specifies office hours and never did by appointment only. That's kind of a professor thing most of the time, is
Yeah.
the appointment.
Yeah,
We don't
yeah.
usually make graduate assistants do appointments because that would be too intrusive on your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm with
Yeah, I
Lisa.
think
I
it's
don't think
just
that you have to
set.
do that.
I've never made
I don't
anyone
think
do
so.
that.
I mean, it's great if it works for your schedule, but your
Yeah.
schedule is also your schedule. So,
Yeah, nothing open-ended.
you know,
Yeah.
and remember that we have office hours.
Yes.
So if you have students who are clamoring for your time, also encourage them to come to our office hours.
Yep.
Right? And we try to be approachable as well. Even though they'd rather come see you because they know you, they see you, you know, and you're closer in age and that kind of thing. But encourage them, move them on. Yes. Okay. Other concerns?
How are we doing on time, Alex?
Worries? We still have 10
All right,
minutes.
come on. Somebody, a question, crazy off the wall question.
You're not
Things
ready
you're
for
worried
next week.
about. I don't know. Yes.
So if you're running a lab as a TA or something, especially for like engineering or something like that, what is your recommendation if like the lab starts going wrong? Because you may not have designed the lab or, you know, things like that.
Murray.
So preparation.
Happened to Murray.
So that's one of the reasons why I really say it can be so valuable to make sure the equipment's all set up. When there is an emergency kind of, well, the lab might not work. So there are two possibilities. Either you can find someone who can help it, or that lab is not going to work, and there might be an alternative assignment that you could try to, on the spur of the moment, come up with. We're not expecting you to do that, but maybe if you're concerned that some types of labs are critically, single point failure, maybe that's something you can develop with your faculty supervisor to say, hey, what should we do when something utterly fails? But ideally, when you've done that pre-vetting, we're going to try to make sure for that whole set of labs, whatever it's a week usually, that they will actually work, and that if there's a critical failure, there's a backup and some plan. Mm-hmm. You're not responsible for solving all the problems, but do, as soon as you can, go up the chain if there's a real critical failure.
We can all just also apologize. Here's the
Yes.
thing you got to remember. You are going to do something that makes you feel stupid during class. I do it every single semester.
Yeah.
And you just have to go, oh, sorry. Like, how many times you had a professor in the middle of the problem, like they're doing something, it happens to everybody. It just falls apart. We are human beings. We are not computers. So you kind of just have to have that relationship where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a complete mess today. I'm sorry. And kind of, I'm sorry. Let me start over.
this
Let
is
me
not
pull this
working.
together.
Yeah.
You don't need to kill yourself over that. I mean, it's just, it's okay.
It's going to happen so rarely, hopefully,
Yeah.
right? That if something doesn't work out, that students will give you grace.
Yeah.
I mean,
They know.
it's okay.
Make it funny. I mean,
Yeah. But it's bound. Technical difficulties are bound to happen.
Yes.
That is for sure.
Yes.
And it's a good thing for them to understand as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Any last questions? Comments? Snide remarks?
snide remarks.
I don't know. Whatever.
They try not to make snide remarks in your labs. They will come back to you.
And I will say, in the whole keep it professional thing, I mean, really maximize their time in those labs. Unless something just falls apart and you've got to dismiss them, right?
Yeah.
Do the thing, tell people on the front end of the labs, this is why we're doing this activity. This is why, in lecture, Dr. Mckinney was talking about this, and now in this lab activity, it is reinforcing this concept and helping to show it, right? Tell them why they're learning or why they're doing that thing that they're doing. That will help them kind of have buy-in, but also take it as seriously as you want them to take it. And I will just say, because we've got a minute, what are some of the biggest fails that I'm asking the three of us that we've seen graduate students do? Like, where along the line did we see, like, Oh, gosh.
argue with a student during class.
Hmm.
You know, you have to disengage. That you know, once in a while. This doesn't happen a lot. I mean, we've all
Yeah.
seen it once a year or something. You'll see somebody that's really angry or something, and they want to engage the lab instructor, even the teacher. You've seen this before. You just, that's just get out of that. It's not your job.
You just
Don't worry
walk
about it.
away and that's.
No, we're just not going to talk about this right
Yeah.
now. I can talk to you about it, and they, you know,
after class.
people will stop eventually. It's just I'm not going to snip back at you and start slamming you. I've seen that go wrong, but like once every couple of years. I mean, somebody just really got to someone.
Yeah, or you'll every once in a while you'll have a heckler in class.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, the old
You
heckler.
know, and in labs, and I've had lab instructors come to me and say that, and they handle it really well when they're like, "Okay, Jimmy, we get that. Moving on."
I've had
You know, and you
girls
just kind
talk
of-
about what
right.
I'm wearing. I can tell they're like,
Wow.
I mean, whatever.
"Oh, how's it going, girls?" So it's just you got to be comfortable with yourself, and that's what the next year is going to be.
Yeah.
Getting more and more comfortable with yourself in front of people looking at you and critiquing what's coming out of your mouth and what you look like.
Yeah.
You get that's a really good skill to have when you think about it. I am okay with me, right?
Yeah.
That is such a great feeling to have, and not a lot of people at your age have that. If
That's
you
true.
do, you're unbelievable. I'm still working at it.
Yeah.
Just the feeling of I am not perfect. I'm not going to say the perfect thing, but I am sure trying, and I'm okay with me.
Yeah. And you know what? I heard a great quote a couple of years ago. Somebody said, if you wake up in the morning looking for ways to be offended,
Oh, that's a good one.
you will find them.
Absolutely.
My advice to you is not to look for ways to be offended.
Yeah.
Really have a thick skin. Be an objective person. Don't be a person who has a lot of feelings.
The old, what did you mean
I
by
mean-
that? You know, that?
Really. Don't have a lot of
Which was that?
feelings. Don't. Be professional, be engaging, be kind, but don't get your feelings hurt about
Yeah.
stuff and move on. And I think that's really a great piece of advice is
That's a
you know,
lesson about
be able
being
to-
an adult.
yeah,
That's the funny
be able
thing.
to
That's
laugh
At
at
47,
yourself.
I am still working on
Or-
that. So you are going to continually
Yeah.
keep working on that. I have to wake up in the morning and tell myself,
But no.
I mean, do not be offended. You know,
But it-
I am okay. I like me.
Here's the thing. I really love working with graduate students in the 2 years that I may have them teaching public speaking because it is the most beneficial opportunity for professional growth than anything else on a university campus. Having the opportunity that you have now to be in front of a class, to manage that class. This is incredible leadership skills, conflict management skills, time management skills, professionalism, understanding, growing who you are,
Amen.
emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-regulation. I mean, all of those things. This is the experience that I see people make the biggest jump in who they are as a person going through this experience for a couple of years. And then I see them, even if they don't go into academia, be incredible in the marketplace because they can say, you know what, I can teach, I can speak, I'm, organized, I can manage conflict. I mean, it's an incredible experience that you have.
What
It's
do they
a
always
job.
say is the number one for success period is public speaking. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you
So-
teach. Anywhere you guys are headed, this is
what you're doing.
we're throwing you out there.
Yeah.
And that's going to be worth millions of dollars.
It is. It's a great
There's
skill.
no place you can now hide in a little hole and not speak anymore. There's nothing left. Even the program coders are having to talk to people. Right?
Right.
Everybody has to talk.
And it gets better with practice. I've
It
never
really
been
does.
formally trained how to do this, and now I'm comfortable. But the
Yeah.
first time I had to teach, I was just, completely.
You're like, I'm an astronomer. I
Yeah,
don't know what to do.
I have no idea what they expect of me, and then I just started doing it. And the more I did it, the more comfortable I was with it. So, yeah, you will get better. I promise. I had one. I guess you asked
Yeah, go
what
ahead.
with the worst mistake, and I feel like it's almost a cop-out answer, but it's giving wrong information. So in a physics lab, for instance, if you have to get the right number and you need the right number here, and the instructor just gives something that's completely wrong, and as a result, everyone's answer is wrong because hey, the instructor told me this. So. You're going to make mistakes. I don't want you to be afraid of making mistakes, but do keep in mind that with that preparation, you'll know what the information should be. And if you're not prepared, that's where it's easiest to make that really critical error that just throws the whole thing out the window and then you lose the credibility. So I don't want to scare you with that, but preparation, that will cure all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we would love for you to come up if you have any questions that you didn't want to ask in the big group. Come up, meet us, ask a question. We'll be happy to answer for you. Thank you all for
Thank you guys.
being in the
Appreciate
session.
it.